I'm Two Sylvanians and I make videos about Sylvanian families, also known as Calico critters. And today I'm posting the first of two videos I'll be making about Grinpa Sylvanian Park, which is near Susanoo City in the foothills of Mount Fuji in Japan. So when planning my Japan trip, I knew I wanted to try and go to one of the Sylvania parks. And this one worked out the best in terms of location, especially because you can actually stay there at the campsite. And that is what this video is going to be about. And I haven't seen anything online about the park as accommodation either. So first I'll show you the footage of the lodge and about my experience, and then at the end I'll talk about getting there and the booking process for those who want to stay there as well. The campsite itself is called PICA, and there are two Sylvanian lodges. So the cute house in Strawberry Forage is this one, and this is modelled after Rose Cottage, also known as Raspberry Cottage. But we stayed in this one, called the Little House in the Forest, which is like the Copper Beech Cottage. It was about 7 PM when we arrived, so it was a little dark compared to the photo on the website, but Freya was there by the door to greet us. And Mount Fuji was in the distance, which was beautiful. The house was a little bit worn and some of the paint was chipping off, but it looked better from a distance, especially with that gorgeous view. Most people would bring their car and drive here, and there is a big parking space in front. And the house looked out onto the Grinpa theme park. As I said, it was evening, so the park was closed at this time, but it felt very peaceful with the birds chirping. On the right side of the house was a little deck or terrace area, and beyond that was the Sylvanian part of the park. I was trying to spy in advance of going there the next day. This is the back of the lodge. And there was a bright red mailbox, which felt very Sylvanian. Nothing in there right now. And then I'll bring you over to the deck area. There was a large picnic bench, a sink or food prep area, and a big barbecue too. So plenty of room for a family with a couple of kids. And yeah, that is by the side of the lodge. This was the little decking part which led to the front door. And inside felt very much like a log cabin with wood panelling from floor to ceiling. It was quite simple inside with some basic furniture, which was again made of wood of course. This was the entrance area with the place to take your shoes off. And next to that was the kitchen. The bottle by the sink was ours. The kitchen wasn't very big, but enough if you wanted to do a bit of cooking. And the toilet and sink was through that door. So this is the main living space with the bed, which had a pull-out section underneath, and the sofa was a sofa bed. The decor was very Sylvanian with lots of postcards and pictures. This had some of the mascots, and another little one back here. This postcard has the house that this one is modelled after, and another cute one too. The map of Sylvania was above the bed, and from my exhibition book I know it's the version that came out in 2011. This was the shelf above the sofa with some fake flowers, and the Sylvanian version of this house with some glued down chocolate rabbits. And yeah, a nice cosy bed with patchwork quilt. And there were curtains on each of the windows too. When we checked in, we got this packet of information. And also included was a map of the different areas. The Sylvanian accommodation was all in the red park, and this house was this lodge. So that's the lodge we stayed in, but there were other Sylvanian accommodations which you could book. Firstly, there were these two tent areas. They were just across from the little house we stayed at. It's a pre-set up tent on a covered wooden deck. The name is Exciting Campsite with Saffron Walnut. She is beside that there. She is looking a little worse for wear, I assume due to the weather, and saffron is hard rather than fuzzy texture, and hollow inside maybe? She's still recognisable though. And there's a nice view of Mount Fuji and the next Sylvanian campsite. This one looks the same other than a different character, and the name tells us that this is Petal from the Nonahana family. So here he is. He's the same as saffron with a kind of rough texture. and he has, or had, something in his hand. Maybe a book, but the cover is gone, so I couldn't quite tell. The Nonohana family have white on their face to look like Mount Fuji, and there were also some cute bunting flags along the roofline. In a separate area, this map shows the red park area of the campsite. So that's the house that we stayed at, and this is the other Sylvanian house. So let's check that out. All of the roads were paved like this, so it was fine for cars. And this is the cute house in Strawberry Forest. Mount Fuji is in the back there, just a bit hidden by trees. And this one really looks like the Sylvanian house it's modelled after. I had checked with the staff that there wasn't anyone staying this night, so we could have a closer look. Cromwell Cottontail there to greet you by the front door, and his paint on his head had come off a bit. Also, one of the beads on his dungarees had come off, and all of the clothes were made of a kind of vinyl material. There are pictures on the website of what this house looks like on the deck, and inside as well. Beside the strawberry house, you could also see into the park, especially the windmill. But obviously it was all closed at night with no one there. The final thing I wanted to show is the kitchen, which had some counter space and lots of sinks, so helpful if you're camping and need somewhere to prepare food. There was also a building with showers and baths, but that felt a bit weird to film, so here's pictures from the website instead. When we woke up in the morning, it was very misty and we couldn't see Grinpa Park anymore. However, outside we could hear it with the gentle background music playing. I think it opened at 9:30. I went out to the mailbox and had received a postcard. So it had Rose Cottage on and was addressed to me. So here's a better look. The front has the PICA and Grinpa logos on and is definitely giving early 2000s Sylvanian families vibes. Obviously the back is in Japanese, but my name is printed exactly as I wrote to the reception desk staff member the previous evening when he asked if I wanted a postcard. And this is what Google Translate thinks it says. So I'm guessing if you stayed at the other Sylvanian house, the postcard would have been from Freya Chocolate in the little house in the forest. In fact, it might be this postcard which was decor where we stayed. So that's a really fun souvenir. Back to Fuji, I closed the box back up and we got on with our day at Grinpa. The checkout time was 11 AM and we left a little before that as the park was already open. So that was everything about our stay. I'd say overall that the accommodation wasn't the best and could definitely do with more of a spruce up and fresh paint outside, but it was fine for a lodge on a campsite, especially with that beautiful view of Mount Fuji. It was also a nice change of scenery from the busy cities with a bit of peace and quiet. Obviously the main draw for staying here is going to Grinpa Park, and now I've visited that, I don't really have a reason to stay here again, and I'd like to visit the other Sylvanian parks like Harvest Hill before coming back to Grinpa again. In terms of travelling, we went there from Kyoto, and this is roughly the route we took. The Shinkansen bullet train to Mishima Station, then a local train to Gotemba, and from there we got a taxi. I booked it with Go Taxi on the app which I had downloaded beforehand, and that meant I could pay through the app. I think Uber also exists in Japan, but it wasn't showing any availability in Gotemba. The taxi driver seemed worried at first because the only way up there is via a toll road, but we showed him cash to use and it was fine. He was using a Translate app to talk to us too, so that worked well. The toll was only 500 yen and we had the exact coins which he put in the machine, and make sure to get your receipt through because the reception desk will refund you. It was quite a long ride and the taxi cost 7,550 yen or about £40, but that was the only way for us to get there at that time of day and without hiring a car, which would have been way more expensive. There is a bus which we got on the way back from the park, so definitely look into how you're getting there in advance if you're not driving. The taxi driver was very nice. He gave us these little strawberry chocolates which my husband ate, and then dropped us off right by the reception entrance with our suitcase. The check-in desk was only open until 7 PM, so be sure to arrive before then. The reception desk does say to contact them if you'll have a late arrival, but I'm not sure exactly how to do that. Once we went inside, the staff member who was checking us in took photocopies of our passports as is mandatory, and we bought some crisps I think at the shop, but there isn't much there, so I'd recommend bringing food if you can, and there was definitely some convenience stores near Gotemba station. We got the toll reimbursed, which I wasn't actually expecting, and then got the key and welcome packet I showed earlier. The staff member did also ask if I knew Sylvanian families, so of course I said yes and showed my little babies. He then asked if we wanted to receive a postcard overnight, which you've already seen I said yes to, and gave my name as to who it was for. He also said we could borrow some Sylvanian toys if we wanted, which I guess is normally if you have children staying, but we said no to that. With hindsight, I probably should have just said yes to see what he would have brought, but we already had some bags to carry. So I'd say the only tricky thing was the last part of travelling to the park. There was a point where there were no taxis showing us available either, which made me a little concerned. And maybe we could have booked the taxi in advance if we'd known what time we were arriving, but we were disorganised and obviously it ended up being fine. But otherwise, my general tip for Japan was definitely having the Google app or another translation one if you don't speak Japanese to make it as easy as possible to communicate, like I did with the man working at the check-in desk. And my final topic is talking about the booking process. So all of this is true for my visit in May 2025, but if you're watching this video in a few years, then things could have changed. I booked through the PICA site, which I'll link in the description, and in their accommodation page there's a section called Sylvanian Families. Obviously you could pick any of the other accommodations too, but if you're watching this I assume you'll want one of the Sylvanian lodgings. The top right button translates as make a reservation, which opens a new page. And then you need to find the date you want to go with the calendar. And you'll probably want to check that Grinpa is open if you're planning to go. But yeah, once you've picked your date, scroll down to the Sylvanian accommodation to see if it's available. A blue circle means it's free. So then you'll need to log in or create an account. And I had to go through a bit of trial and error with this. Email address was fine. This is your name. I was able to write it with the Latin alphabet. But if it requires you to use kanji, just use one of the translators like this to generate your name. Furigana is the pronunciation of your name, and that was actually where I put the kanji version of my name, but you could just paste it in again if you couldn't use the Latin alphabet in the first one. For the postcode, I just did 7 number 9s, because British postcodes are a mixture of letters and numbers, and it would only allow numbers. And for prefecture, I just chose other right at the bottom. Address was fine for me to write in English, and for my phone number, it required me to start with a 0, so I did that, then 44 for the UK dialing code, and then the rest of my phone number. So once you registered, you can book the accommodation. I'd recommend using a card which doesn't charge for international payments. For instance, I used Monzo, but you could use a credit card for greater protection. I booked the accommodation back in February, a few months before we went, and that was fine. But then a week later, I got it refunded. So I was very confused and worried that they'd realised I wasn't Japanese or something, so I'd cancelled it. I think I emailed, but I didn't get a response, so just kind of hope for the best and forgot about it, to be honest. I think now that's just to check you had the money in your account, and we paid the full amount once we arrived, which then got taken a couple of days later. The exchange rate had actually gone down by May, so it ended up being slightly cheaper in pounds than we originally got charged. So I was a bit worried when doing the booking, but it ended up being fine, and we were able to stay there with no problems. I really hope that this gave you a good view into what it's like to stay at Grinpa Park, and as far as I know, this is the only place in the world where you can actually sleep in a Sylvanian house, so I'm delighted to have got to do that. If you have any questions, especially if you want to stay there yourself, then please leave a comment, and thank you for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel as I will next be showing around the actual Grinpa Park, and you won't want to miss that. And otherwise, I post Sylvanian families content every week, including news, hauls and unboxings.